Hey y'all, so welcome back. Today we are getting ready to do a really fun class because it's Hank's birthday. We are doing a cocktail class. We're doing a cocktail making class. I forget what you call it, right? Cocktail making class? Cocktail class. It's centered around gin, so we're gonna do a rum. It's because I love gin so much. It's centered around, wow, look at that tree. We had a real bad storm that just came through and like, you see that thing? It like broke it off. Good Lord. You see that? But we're gonna make two drinks. One of them's a daiquiri and I forget what the other one is, but I'm excited to celebrate Hank's birthday. I'm sure we'll go out and get something to eat after this, but the place we're going to is called Liberty and Plenty, and they make, walking up a hill, they do rum, I think they have vodka, I think they have a bourbon maybe, but we'll see when we get there. Also, I got a mic, y'all, so let me know if you can tell a difference in the sound quality with the microphone, because it's a pretty big noticeable microphone. And it makes holding this thing so much more noticeable, so that's nice. And this place is right beside the Rickhouse in Durham. And watch your step. And they used to have this thing called Pickle Fest, where they had all these like cool, like different types of pickles. And not just cucumber pickles, like they had strawberries, they had cocktails, they had all kinds of stuff. But they haven't brought back Pickle Fest yet. So sad.
This is our distillery. I mean, we've crammed as much equipment in here as we possibly can to make it somewhat efficient. We're not doing bourbon and whiskey production right now because we're kind of low on grains, so we have to wait for the new crops to come in. So we make bourbon, we make whiskey, we make rum, we make vodka. We're about to make gin. So we make all the different flavors of the rainbow here. And we started production last fall, putting down our own bourbons, our own whiskeys. We do Jimmy Red whiskey, which is heritage corn. And then we also make all of our bourbons using a component of the heritage corns, either blue or white or red, whether it be Bloody Butcher or whether it be Jimmy Red. So those all go into New Charred Oak, and then they're sleeping away, as we speak. We have two different still sets, as you see in here. This one was one of the original kit packages that actually does a lot of our productions on the whiskey and the rum side. So I just bought a new small still so we can work with gin in that one and do super shotting on that. That's what we call super shotting. We super concentrate the gin botanicals and then we dilute them out and spin them into something wonderful. So Liberty and Plenty is named for obviously the women in the state seal of North Carolina. And what that means to you is up to you. We like to think that it means a lot of abundance and then a lot of basically growth, I think, and opportunity for people. And that's kind of what we see here in Durham and we see across the state. So we produce a lot of things in a different way. We use double batch distillation for anything that's fermented. So if it's bourbon, if it's whiskey, if it's rum, we do double batch distillation. So what we do first is we create the fermentation and then we take the alcohol we produced and we put it in this still. And this is our stripping still. It's a large 500-gallon German Cote still. And this still, we pull all of the alcohol that we produced out of the mash. And then we take that mash and then we give it to farmers. And then they use it with their crops or they use it with their animals. So there's a natural cycle there. So the magic behind all things distilling is that ethanol boils at a lower temperature. And because of that, it comes off the still first in the form of alcohol vapor. That's why it works. That's all it is. And it's the same technique with this still, with that still, with that tiny little still that you might see floating around here. It's the same concept. So what's left behind normally in the pot is just water and whatever tails that might be left behind that you don't want. So if we're making bourbon, we have to do a couple of things. We have to work with grain. So we take that grain bill and then we put it in our mash tun. So it's ground into a mixture of different coarse grains or medium fine or flour grains. And then we mash it at different temperatures according to what each grain requires. And we cook it to release the sugar. Then we take that and we put it in our fermenters. Once it cools down, then we pitch the yeast. And that's what creates the alcohol fermentation.
This is our rum. It's a white rum. It means that it is not added to a barrel. So we actually have parts of North Carolina, like one town in North Carolina is actually named for rum, and that is Kill Devil Hills. So rum was known as Kill Devil because it was so strong it could kill the devil. So Kill Devil Hills is where a lot of that rum was dropped off. So you really have, during kind of that colonial era in North Carolina, two spirits predominant. The one being brandy, so those spirits made from apples, pears, fruits, fermented, redistilled, so that would be in Appalachia. And then on the coast, those that were delivered really cheap from the Caribbean, which was rum. This was a really fun read. I believe it is Spirits of the South was the name of that book. And just a lot of fun for reading. So if you're curious to learn more and dive into that, because that ethanol can burn the top of your mouth. If you just let it roll around on your tongue, that really does help you to experience all of it. So that is how I experience when I'm tasting something new, figure out what works and how it works.
It's good.
And so this rum also, so when I make this rum, we use 3 different yeast strains. And that develops a lot of...
This drink, however, is something that's been around forever. I say forever, not really forever, but you know, quite a while. It came around as like Navy grog and different components. It is essentially the rum version of the gimlet, and the gimlet is the gin version of a daiquiri. Alright, so there's actually a lot of interplay between the two, and that's where we'll go in today into like some of the theory after we make our first, as to how you kind of make your own variations on the daiquiri. But as it was grog, usually what they would do when they were out at sea is they had these rations of rum that they would give. It was Navy strength rum, so 57% alcohol and above. And they would get this ration of rum, and because it wasn't too palatable to drink something so hot, they would add Rose's lime cordial to it. So lime cordial would be lime juice and sugar put together to make that. Now we've separated those apart in the modern variations of that because it allows us to use really fresh lime juice. You make a cordial so that way when you're out at sea, that lime doesn't spoil. And so here, we use fresh lime juice because it gives us a better product and we get more of that fresh crispness from that lime. You have a jigger, so it kind of looks a little bit like this. You can see, so this is a Japanese style. You want to take a look at this one. This one does have a lot of different lines in it, so you can kind of see. Yours doesn't have all of the lines, but you'll see the top one is 1 ounce, the bottom is 2, or the larger is 2 ounces, the top is 1. From there, usually we're able to measure, so I can pass that along so you can kind of see what those lines look like inside. Those lines are what we use to help for a 1/4 ounce, a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 of an ounce, 1 ounce. On the other side, it can give us 1.5 ounces. This is what I use when I'm behind the bar to measure everything. Now, this is 3 simple ingredients. It's gonna be rum, lime, simple syrup. All right, you'll see that you have my ratios that I use on there. I deal a lot in ratios, or I deal a lot in kind of those numbers, and that is the theory of which I run into all of my cocktails. So to start off, we're gonna look at what we have there. So you got that jigger. So it is named apparently for the thingamajigger. That is the only background I was able to ever find on that, and I'm like, this is not a good enough story for me. So if you can come up with a better story, please let me know. I would love to adopt that and use it. You'll also have your Boston shaker or your shaker tin. So with a shaker tin, you'll usually have a smaller side and a larger side. You can build in either side. I prefer to build my cocktails in the larger. That way I can put my ice in the smaller when I'm done. So, but that is a preference. So if anyone tells you it has to be one way, I can tell you, and all of the bartenders that I know, and all of them who build differently, doesn't matter if they're building with this or that, usually a talented bartender is gonna make you a delicious drink out of a Boston shaker. You will also find Boston shakers on the market that are a pint glass. So actual glass and metal, and they go in together. I highly, highly recommend never getting that. And the reason for that is glass breaks. And I've seen it break on people's hands while they're shaking. You don't want that for you. Safety is kind of important. So we've got that. Other components of what we'll have or we'll be using today, we have a Hawthorne strainer. So this strainer here that we use, this will go in when we go to strain, and this blocks that ice from coming out, so we just have liquid. There's another type of strainer that can be used. That's a julep strainer. Julep strainers I tend to use with my mixing glasses. Over top, this would go in. I'll press in on all of that ice, pour out, and helps me just keep that ice from going out. There is a mix between both of them, but those are really hard to find. They're rare to use. I have one bartender friend who only will use those, and it kind of looks like if this had the coil. It's kind of cool. It's also kind of weird to use, not gonna lie. And if they were here, I would judge them for it. The last component that I will use behind the bar, especially if I don't have a coil that is so tightly wound. If I have something like this OXO strainer, you can see how loose that coil is. That's gonna let through a lot of small ice, so you'll wanna use a strainer. Some people will use a tight coil and a strainer. Others will just use a regular coil and that double strainer. It helps us to go through and make cocktails faster, pour them out faster, and move on with our cocktails, especially when we have a lot. All right, one thing you might notice in front of you is you all don't have the exact same glass. Time for some glass history. This will be quick. This is a Nick and Nora. This is a coupe. All Nick and Noras are coupes. Not all coupes are Nick and Noras. Coupes came first. The Nick and Nora came about in the early 1900s after a series, a book series, not to be confused with Nick and Nora's movie, that one that was like way later in the 90s. This was way before that. So you do have that. And then the martini glass came after the Nick and Nora. It was modeled after, so a martini glass is also a Nick and Nora. If you have to choose between how many glasses you can have on your bar, I usually recommend for people either a coupe or I personally prefer a Nick and Nora. They usually are about 5 ounces, so that's another thing that matters a lot. You will see there are larger coupe glasses that are used for different components. So this is a 7.5 ounce, this is a 5 ounce. And so that can matter depending on if you want it to be all the way full or you want to leave some room at the top. So fantastic. All right, so when I build my cocktails, I always start with my cheapest ingredients first. The reason for that is when you mess it up, that way you're only throwing away citrus and syrup rather than really expensive, delicious alcohol. Now, in a bar, a little bit different than maybe at home. At home, you'll probably drink whatever because you're not going to waste anything because it's your home bar and why would you do that? So we're going to go for 3/4 ounce pour of our simple syrup. So the simple syrup is what's going to be in that little beer looking bottle. Simple syrup. It is named precisely for how easy it is to make. There are multiple ways to make it. Sometimes people will just put a 1-to-1 ratio or 1 cup to 1 cup of sugar and water. Mix that in, stir that around, make sure it's fully dissolved. You have simple syrup. You can add heat, that does help it to dissolve faster and break that apart. You can also do it without heat. So if you do it without heat, you might just have to go back and stir it again. If it is hot when you go to shake it, it'll over dilute your drink. We're gonna take that and we're gonna go ahead and pour 3/4 of an ounce into your jigger. So it'll go into the 1 ounce side, that jigger over. We'll fill up with our Captain Cane rum that is in front of you, so you can use that and fill all the way up to the top. The beauty of that is you can fill it right up to the rim. That way you're not getting that bubble over, but just as close as possible to where you're in line. If you were to hold it up straight, you would see nothing but kind of like a glassy surface.
No drinking out of the bottle.
Well, it's alcohol, it'll sanitize it.
Yes, I will need to use these bottles later this week. So you'll actually give it a little bit more and you'll get to that 2 ounces. So you can pull it all the way to the top, essentially. Perfect. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some ice and we're gonna fill up that small tin. So there is a little scoop. There's on in, so we can all get that ice in. So some fun notes about shaking. Important notes is you do want a good seal on your shaking tin. There are a few ways that we do it. Now I'm gonna push. The large part is always facing me as a bartender, and the reason for that is if I shake it like this and it opens up, guess who gets it for a preview of their cocktail? Yeah, so what I'll do is when I'm shaking, I'll go front, back, and essentially what you're looking to do is have that ice hit both ends. What? Semi-rigorously, depending on who you are and how angry you are as well. Alright, that's a little too rigorous there. You're at top. That's how you be abusive. Don't worry. The number of bartenders who do that is more than enough. And if you just want to wiggle the top, that can work too. There's a number of ways that can do it, but as long as you get that initial seal broken, it becomes a lot easier.
Okay, say that one more time.
So, you can grab here and here, and then pull the top.
Oh.
Does that work? Don't worry, the number of bartenders who struggle with this. Now you want about 4 ounces of alcohol in there. That's how you'll know whether or not you overshook. Fun little notes.
I'll just stop. It's there. You'll never know.
All right, so I overshook just a little bit so you can see where my line is. I usually want my line to be a little bit down here. What I'll do with the channel knife is I'll essentially take it and drag it along carefully from top to bottom. And I get a beautiful little strip, and I can go ahead and give it a little curl by curling it up, giving it a little of that tension. It sits beautifully in there. So. So I'll usually take that base rate. So this 2, 3/4, 3/4 allows that alcohol to really shine. So it allows kind of that base spirit to pop, which is really important for me. It just means that it was aged longer. And then we have LeBlanc. LeBlanc is not rum, but it also is rum. Cachaça is essentially Brazilian rum. It's made from sugar cane. It tends to have a little bit more funk, so it adds a little bit more character. All that to say, like, if you enjoy something, embrace that and enjoy it. If you're drinking your whiskey and you like to have it on the rocks, have it on the rocks. Spirits are meant to be enjoyed, and they're meant to be enjoyed with other people. They're meant for us to be curious, which is why one of our slogans here is enjoy with spirited curiosity. So when you come into a bar, that's what we want you to feel and to experience. When you come into our distillery or when you drink our spirits, we want you to enjoy it curiously, and enjoy it with other people and talk about it, because why not? So what you're gonna get with our white rum, you tasted that a little bit. So you get some of those butterscotch notes, you get that sweetness, a little bit of that citrus. What you get with the Appleton Estate tends to be a little bit more towards like your vanilla side. It's a little bit more laid back. So this one is more of just like a really quiet way to complement a different rum. Appleton Estate is sometimes what I see in a lot of wells for an aged rum because it's cheap but very effective and still really tasty. Real McCoy, aged 12 years. This is gonna have a lot of complexity. So with all of that complexity in there, I mean, I think Tina, you probably have a better note on all of that, because I haven't tasted this one quite by itself enough to give all of the full notes. But it tends to be a lot more complex.
So now we're gonna taste some of the drinks that they have. This one was the which one?
So this is gonna be your Appleton Escape.
Can I see that? Can I still look for it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Looking in.
So that's the interesting thing about mixed spirits is that, you know, they complement each other on the sugar levels.
And I will say, it is challenging. Blending is not easy. The difference mean like
Versus like
storing essentially for these is most times they'll go straight to the bottle, and then they'll go straight to the consumer. From there, storing it light does tend to oxidize over time. The beauty with
when you start thinking about blending, right? Because like Joy was saying, the Appleton and the Rickhouse, probably they're similar enough that it's really not going to make a whole lot of difference in the spirit.
You'll definitely get like those sweeter notes, but these two together, I would say, just tend to be like, okay, that's really good. But
That's really interesting.
That last little
I like
piece. The ones. Cachaça is really hard. That is the only cachaça you
I already know that I like this one. So.
Outside of that, I really haven't gotten to dive very far into it because it is so hard to find. My alcohol shelf/bar at home is very, very, very full.
How do you make the saline, or is it just bartender tears?
Ooh. All right, this is getting a new name. It's happening right now.
My bad. I see it down here.
You've already been provided with the information, Andrea.
My bad.
It is a 4-to-1 ratio.
He did say it.
So you can scale that up and down.
My bad, Jess.
Like I'll do 200. Have those bitters in there, pumpkin spice
Okay,
bitters.
so is it going in this thing?
Yep.
Okay, so
Let's do 2. So fill that full with 2.
two of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have you add
Wow, sir. Sorry. Do you hear her talking?
your honey.
Okay.
So I'm gonna use this honey syrup that I put in front of you here.
Okay.
You see where the half ounce is in here?
I don't.
That middle line, you'll see it all the way down there.
Yes.
You see that half?
Yes.
All right, fill it up to half.
Okay. Half
Perfect.
of honey syrup.
Yep.
Okay.
Now we're gonna give it that nice little tropical kick with some coconut. So this is toasted coconut. We're
Okay.
gonna do a 1/4 ounce of that.
So a fourth, right?
So, yep. Perfect. A little bit over won't hurt.
Okay.
All right, so now what I'm lemon for you. We're gonna do 3/4 of an ounce of lemon. So Beaverboat's gonna come out a little bit faster in that one.
3/4, right?
Yep.
There's one. And this is lemon, right?
Yep.
And I would say just strain that.
All right, you're gonna do a half ounce of the real McCoy.
Okay. That's a real McCoy. A halfie.
Yep.
Just saying.
Okay.
And we're gonna double check. we're gonna do 1.5 ounces. So we're gonna flip over to the larger side. And then you'll see the 1.5. I think your letters are right down there. You see that on there?
Yeah, I do. Okay.
Perfect. Okay. And you're ready to shake?
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, or to break it apart. My own personal preference. If you make a cocktail you like at the end of the day, do that. So.
Can you make a daiquiri with something other than rum?
Yes, that's a fantastic one. So outside of rum, I love to focus on rum since we're kind of in that thing, right? But outside of that, I also get to play with like really fun things. Like
this is my fall cocktail.
Like, hey, throw this into the rotary evaporator, and they'll be like, fine, we'll do this for you. Or I have a centrifuge back there, so I can use the centrifuge to clarify a cocktail. We actually have a milk punch on the menu. Those are a lot of fun. It means we use milk to kind of keep it clear. Yeah, there we go. There's a little bit left. I'm making more tomorrow of our
What you like. Because what you like might be Bacardi Light Rum. Okay, fine. Cool. Great.
We are allowed to sell bottles here on premise, so ABC has allowed us to do that. We do that 7 days a week until 9 p.m. So you are welcome to come on in and make a purchase. If you want to make a purchase tonight, you're allowed to do that as well. In fact, I would encourage it. And then lastly, if you're looking for like that Cocktail Codex book I talked about or other books, if you're just piqued on curiosity or anything that I've got on my retail shelf, I've been approved to give you 10% off tonight. So my little nod, my way of saying thanks for coming in.
Y'all, that class was an absolute blast. So you made they gave you the recipe for the first drink, and then the second drink, they kind of let you know the different flavorings and syrups and things like that they had, and then you kind of make your own drink. So that was really cool. Joy, she was a doll. Tina, who owned the place, was great, and let me tell you, she knows her stuff. So now we're gonna go get something to eat for Hank's birthday. But look up Liberty and Plenty. They're gonna have some gins rolling out pretty soon. I think she said in December they're probably gonna have some, but they may have like a gin class before that, so we'll definitely be back for that. But I'll put all their information, where to get tickets to do the class, and if you just want to come have a few cocktails, you can do that. All the information will be in the description box. Walking through Durham sometimes, man, it is a trek, a treacherous trek. Whew. So we are going to the waiting room because I saw that they had some banh mi's. I think they were like banh mi's on the menu. So I will be letting Hank have cocktails. I'll probably just have some mocktails because drinking more than 2 cocktails now just gives me a headache. So yeah. So Hank got whiskey, right? Which one did you get? Can I see, what is it, Knob Creek? Can I see that bottle?
Yeah, so this is one of the Bolsey Rickhouse ones. They call it Granny Scarecrow. So good.
It's not as good as gin, but Hank likes it. These are fantastic.
Come on.
I could literally throw up. This stuff smells so bad. You like it? I'm happy for you. Give me gin. But look at her. Listen. This is the pixie dust though. Look at that thing. Oh my god.
True professional.
My poop is going better. Oh, it smells like a gardenia flower. Smell it.
Did you guys do that tequila class tonight?
Yeah, we did.
It's amazing.
Had any water yet?
Conniption Kinsit Gin, lemon juice, Saint Germain, honey ginger, simple syrup, edible glitter.
Throw it in there.
Delicious.
So hot.
That's gonna be dangerous. Crispy buttermilk chicken, gochujang aioli, pickled cucumber, and cilantro. Are you gonna try one? Yep. Gracias. So good. Okay, so I forgot what this was, but it is some sort of orange mousse, the candied lemon, and orange marmalade. And of course I got some of their homemade caramel on the side, so let's try it. Okay, I can't. I'm stuck. Oh, I got it. Can you eat the candy lemon? Can you eat that?
Can you?
It's good.
You have to understand that can you and should you are two different questions.
It's good. Alright. Delicious. Let's try it with the caramel. They make the caramel homemade, so it's so good. Alright, so my last cocktail, second and last, is the Old Bull. So it's a mocktail, but it would normally come with conniption gin, Vita Mezcal, what's that? Pineapple juice, lemon juice, agave simple syrup, and orange bitters, but there's no booze in it, so let's taste it. Taste that. It's good. I didn't taste it. Delicious. Alright, so I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Seeing our cocktail class, one of our favorite bars down here in Durham, because they make some amazing drinks. So if you've watched all this way, I appreciate you. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all. Happy birthday, Jess!